Bridesmaids who were involved in a BRIDZILLA wedding, what happened? Story 1. I had a silent bridezilla. She was my best friend of 15 years and didn't ask for much at all through the wedding planning, as there were only 2 months between engagement and the wedding day. No bachelorette party, no dress shopping, no gift giving, no meeting up in person to do anything. We lived 2 hours away from each other. They didn't want my input. They just wanted me to be there and go find my own dress and look pretty. Okay, whatever you want. You're my bestie and I'm excited that you're getting married. On the day, I wasn't allowed to help with hair and makeup. I just had to focus on my own. Apparently, I couldn't be trusted to do it well enough as I have short hair. Things happened afterwards, where she got her sister, the maid of honor and also my close friend for 15 years, to call me up in a 2-hour phone call and criticize my every little move throughout the entire wedding and say that I should never have accepted to be a bridesmaid if I didn't want to participate. She also went through my Facebook page and noted down expenses I'd posted about. E.g., look at my new bowling ball, I've joined a bowling league for fun, and said I should have spent that money on the wedding instead. The wedding was set 2 days after Christmas, and her family didn't even celebrate Christmas that year because of the wedding, and I was criticized for not spending more time with her, even though the day after Christmas I took a 3-hour train trip just to hang with her the night before her wedding. Apparently I should have stayed the night at the wedding to hang out with the other 2 bridesmaids, but I opted to drive home with my boyfriend as I needed to work. She said from the start she was going to pay for makeup to be done on the day. Then 2 weeks before said I needed to drive 2 hours to go buy a specific brand for myself to wear that was really expensive, which I did, even though I was broke from Christmas shopping, but apparently I had some attitude about it. Then I was criticized for not giving a gift, despite being told being a bridesmaid was gift enough. The bride herself just stopped talking to me and blocked me on Facebook. And after months of petty instances, I just got them both out of my life. I haven't seen either of them since the wedding day, which was 5 years ago. I never even got to see the wedding photos. It is sad that long-term friendships end for nothing. So if you have expectations, say something. Don't expect others to guess, then judge them for failing your expectations and being too scared to talk to them about it directly. So, does anyone think she'll end up getting divorced because of lack of communication? Just kidding. Maybe she'll just disappear. Story 2. A friend asked me to be a bridesmaid at her shotgun wedding, which was to take place in a little over a month. She had us order semi-expensive dresses and they had to be altered to a certain length. Shoes had to be ordered. Toenails had to be painted a neutral color and fingernails had to be French manicured. We weren't allowed to paint our own nails. We had to get them done at a salon. Our hair had to be done professionally by her hairstylist, and we were not, under any circumstances, to have bikini tan lines visible. Mind you, this was right after summer. I lived in an area where beach attire was usually the only attire and everyone had visible tan lines. I eventually had to tell her that I could not afford to have everything done professionally with such short notice. I would be happy to do my hair and makeup. My hair was so short I couldn't do an updo. She told me her mom could pay and then I could pay her back. That was the final straw. I sent her an email telling her I could no longer be at her wedding. She was pregnant and about to get married and now I was adding to her list of problems. I valued the friendship and told her such, but I just couldn't do what she was asking. The email that I sent her was polite and really hammered home the point that I could not afford what she was asking. Either she'd have to be okay and trust that I wouldn't look horrific, or I could back out of the wedding so that she wouldn't have to stress. I wasn't mad at her. Things happened way too fast and she had no time to plan. I get it. I don't have any hard feelings for her. I didn't hear from her for years, until one day she sent me a message asking for me to buy from her multi-level marketing campaign. Story 3. The last wedding I was at, I considered the couple to be very close friends of mine. I still love them very much, but something about my friend changed when she was planning her wedding. She wanted this super fancy princess fairy tale wedding, and it would have cost her bridal party way too much. I think all in all, plus rings, it cost them $100,000+. Just some highlights. She demanded at least 3 to 4 nights away for her bachelorette, then an in-city bachelorette for everyone who couldn't make the expensive trip she was dreaming of. We are in Canada. She wanted to fly to Hawaii. Her wedding wasn't even in town. Nothing was ever good enough. She asked me to plan her bridal shower as MOH number 2. How was that a thing? Because her MOH lived out of town and her sister couldn't delegate to save her life. I knew she loved Disney, didn't drink, and wanted to be a princess. She was a little edgy, so I proposed a tea party with an Alice in the Wonderland theme. She got upset that I asked the women to dress up, the whole 9 yards with hats or fascinators, and said, "Well, Alice in the Wonderland is my least favorite Disney tale." She asked for my recommendation for dinner because I eat out way more than my wallet could handle. I asked her about her dietary restrictions. She was on keto for wedding weight loss, and she's like, "It's fine, this is one exception." And she said she would be happy with the restaurant I chose. I'm like, "Are you sure? Because this restaurant takes a $200 deposit and our party is so large on my CC." She's like, "I never change my mind." I waited 24 hours to make that reservation. She changed her mind. I refused to plan anything further. So one of the other bridesmaids stepped in with ideas for her in-city bachelorette and proposed a comedy show as one of the activities. Everyone is very excited. We sat in the front. The bride fell asleep. I've never been so embarrassed. The wedding was out of town at a resort hotel. She rents suites and the cost is divided up amongst the rooms. I thought it was fair. I rented 2 because I'm there with my sisters, and at the last minute, she asked if I wouldn't mind giving up one for one night because her henna lady needed to stay in an all-female room. No. She can sleep on the couch. I paid for these rooms. She named me MOH number 2. She makes me do work and write a damn speech, yet when it's time to introduce her bridesmaids, she forgets she has 2 MOHs. Whatever, I'm just being petty now. I could go on and on and on. I had calculated in the beginning that if we did everything she wanted, this whole wedding would have cost me $3,000. $3,000. Thank God the out-of-town bachelorette never happened. I still have PTSD from this. I can't even attend weddings without feeling terrified. Sorry this is such a long rant, but I'll never forget the years of life I lost from this nightmare. Kudos to this maid of honor number 2 for being on her maid of honor number 1 game. Jokes aside, I hope she invested the $3,000 in therapy. PTBSD, post-traumatic bridezilla stress disorder, is no joke. Ooh, something came in the mail today. I wonder what it is. It's Rufus rugs!
Got him!
Now, hopefully after this ad plays, you two can say you got him! A rug from Rufus Rugs. Now me and the boys have been grinding non-stop 24/7, making one-of-one hand-tufted premium rugs. Now there's a chance you own a carpet that looks something like this. Let's just be real, it's time for an upgrade. And luckily for you, me and the boys from Rufus Rugs are at your service. We don't make those average cheap quality looking rugs. Nope, not gonna happen. Each one is handcrafted to perfection. No shortcuts, no robot assembly lines, and no dropshipping BS. Just pure rug grind. Whether you love anime, sports, cars, or anything else you can think of, we can turn it into a rug. So click the first link in the description and have your custom idea come to life. Story 4. The bride had 2 weddings. There were pretty different financial backgrounds between us, and I was a friend of the groom who became a friend during their engagement. She had 1 wedding in the local state where she grew up and 1 destination wedding a month later. She couldn't decide which dress to get, so she bought 3. I was maid of honor at the local event and was supposed to be at the destination wedding. I had to overdraw my bank account to attend and cover expenses, so I was really a bit gnawed at all the extravagances. It was a 3-hour ceremony with 2 venue changes. I want what I want. It's my day, and I gave people for that. The words still ringing in my ears just thinking of it. She spent $60,000 in credit card debt on her perfect days, which she told me the day before she informed the groom. The best part was that when she was in her second wedding dress change, she started to scream about how things weren't exactly what she wanted. Standing there, half-dressed and wasted, yelling about how the cake wasn't perfect. $3,000 cake that was transported from another state was slightly squashed on the backside from hours of travel. The whole bridal party was just standing there in the hallway, waiting to take pictures again. I told her to shut up, said I wasn't going to come to a wedding in Ireland, reminded her that her hundreds of guests could hear her buzzed state, and fixed her bustle. She was a handful. At the end of the Irish dancing groups, the toasts, and her wedding dance, that was choreographed, her paid wedding planner offered to give me snow for putting up with such a spoiled bridezilla. The lady did it loudly in front of an aunt who later told the bride, yeah, it sucked. She's a great girl too, just a terrible bride and tippler. Story 5. She wouldn't let our friend, who was on chemotherapy, sit down after they all walked down the aisle. B for bride, F for one of her friends. B is a me type of person who has a controlling husband and doesn't do anything without him. F had very aggressive cancer that she battled for 2 years. One of her doctors in Texas was charged for trying to poison a colleague, so she was going through a very hard time. Google Texas oncologist poisoning. Immediately after the wedding, B found out her new mother-in-law also had cancer, but her prognosis was not bad at all. F was going to treatment in Texas, Boston, Chicago, etc., just to try to beat it. When she found out that the experimental treatments weren't working for her, she wanted her best friend, B, to provide some support. B told her to try to understand why she couldn't because her mother-in-law also had cancer. B cut contact. She wouldn't call back, respond to texts, or do anything. After we heard from F's husband that they were no longer in contact, we also cut contact with B and her new husband. Everything she did or didn't do was enough for us. We got a call one day from F's husband. The call made it seem as though F was ready to see people, but it would be in the hospital. We went there, super happy to finally see her. When we got there, we saw people we had never met crying, and that's all it took for us to know it was F dying. We were there to send her off. I ended up with a nasty staph infection in my hand from the hospital. Her funeral was a week later. That was when I texted B a nasty message about what a crappy friend she had been, and that I hoped she was happy that she didn't get to say she was sorry or goodbye to her so-called best friend. Mind you, I had known F for about 3 years and rarely saw her. F was an oncology nurse. Go figure. She told her husband that I was one of the only ones that would reach out to her and ask her how she was doing when B wouldn't even reply to a text. B showed up to the viewing. She showed up to the funeral with crocodile tears. I wanted to slap her silly. I flipped her off and told her to stop acting. I actively hate her. Story 6. I was a bridesmaid at my father and stepmother's wedding. I was young. It wasn't so much the wedding day that was a problem, but rather the prep and planning. She spent 8 months before the wedding trying to bully me into losing weight for the wedding pictures. The closer we got to it, the more aggressive she was. Eventually, my dad got on the bandwagon too. I started dieting for the wedding, but I was angry and miserable the whole time. Everything I ate was commented on. If she was bringing home dinner, she would always ask what I wanted and then reply, "You shouldn't eat that before the wedding." I had been wanting to get a haircut for months before the planning even started. She insisted I didn't, just in case it went wrong. For the wedding photos, I ended up getting a haircut and re-dyeing my very faded hair a week before the wedding. She had a full-on meltdown and was screaming at me. Why? Because my hair was red and her bouquet had red accent flowers in it. Her overall color scheme was black, silver, and red. She was furious that I was going to clash with the decorations and the pictures. When we went to get bridesmaid dresses, she brought her friends and very much ignored me the whole time. She had one of the employees bring me a dress, and when I peeked out to ask for a bigger size, she lost it again. We got home and she screamed at my dad about it, who in turn went off on me for breaking my promise about losing weight. The wedding happened. I'm only in 2 pictures. Our relationship is a lot better now. A few months ago, she commented that she didn't know why our photographer didn't take more pictures of me. Okay. Body shaming will never be right, regardless of the situation. It's a good thing the relationship is better now, but you should watch out for random suspiciously looking apples lying around, just in case. If you got the reference, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Story 7. I overheard the bride drunkenly tell a mutual friend on her wedding day that if she could do it all over again, she wouldn't have had me and a mutual friend in her bridal party. I was the maid of honor. I planned her bachelorette party with a mutual friend from another country and dropped a lot of money on it personally so she would have the party she wanted. I gifted her a pair of Jimmy Choos for her wedding day, along with a beautiful ring with her wedding date engraved. I had to fly to Europe for her wedding. Used a rental car to get around and help with loading and transporting wedding items back and forth. I was up that morning arranging with a hotel to deliver breakfast or coffee or tea for the bridal party. An old friend decided a week later before the wedding she was going to fly from Oz to surprise the bride, so I had to arrange that surprise, find a hotel room for this friend and speak to the groom to check with catering and arrange a seat for her without the bride knowing. I stepped in to help the makeup artist. She was running behind the schedule. I walked to the venue to make sure things were on track. There were more things she did throughout the night that infuriated me. I was treated like a slave and spoken to like one. I catered her every freaking whim from 6 a.m. until midnight, and then to overhear that. Apparently, her wedding day was ruined because the calla lilies in her centerpieces wouldn't stay suspended in the water vase like she wanted. And it was all my fault because they slowly floated to the top. The next day, she was all hugs and kisses, saying it was the best night ever and she couldn't have done it without me. I have never wanted to falcon punch a person so hard in the face. I will never, ever be a bridesmaid again. Story 8. In my first job out of college, a colleague got engaged and asked 3 colleagues to be her bridesmaids, in addition to one friend from high school. I had only known her for a matter of months, but I didn't feel comfortable saying no because she was one of my bosses. In addition to being at a wedding for someone I barely knew, which is uncomfortable in its own right, there were so many horrible things about this nightmare BRIDZILLA wedding. First, I ended up hosting both her bachelorette and her shower because no one in her life planned anything. She showed up to her own shower an hour late, hungover, and wearing pajamas when she mandated that everyone dress for luncheon. She ordered our dresses from Etsy, as opposed to any bridesmaid dress company, and they looked like seafoam green raw silk pillowcases with holes cut from the arms and head. They tied in giant bows in the back and we all looked like literal infants. She wouldn't let us wear heels with said dresses because the groom was kind of short and we all had to buy new flats in a specific shade of gold. She wanted us to wear our hair in a really ugly, extremely complicated updo, and said we would have to pay to have one of the hairstylists do our hair. We refused. The wedding was on a Sunday in an extremely inconvenient and faraway location, and it was not the Sunday of a long weekend. The rehearsal dinner for this Sunday wedding was on Thursday and started at 4 in the afternoon, requiring everyone to leave work in the middle of the day. She forced us to stay at an expensive hotel in the area the night before the wedding for no apparent reason, and refused to pay for our hotel room. Fun times. Story 9. I have told this story before, but here goes anyway. I was asked to be a bridesmaid by a girl I knew from high school but wasn't really friends with. We worked together a few years later, but we weren't really friends outside of work. I said yes anyway. I was there through all the planning. I went to wedding fairs with her, viewed the venue, helped pick her dress, and anything she needed, I was there. Anyway, she was always complaining about her other bridesmaids and how she only had her sister and her brother's girlfriend, as her dad made her. They didn't really help out or show any interest. Everything that could be booked and arranged in advance was sorted out in under 2 months. The wedding wasn't for 2 years, but she wanted to be ready. I agreed to pay for my dress as she was a bit stuck for cash. We agreed that £100 was reasonable, as long as it was a dress I could wear again. I found a few nice ones online for about £80. She bought one for £30 and it was awful. A trying to knock off kind of thing. She sent it back. Then I didn't hear from her for a few months. I figured we had years still to plan and just waited for her to get in touch. When she did, she was asking for pictures of her trying on dresses, so I sent them over and assured her again how excited I was to be a part of her special day. She went a bit quiet and explained that she thought I had dropped out. I was shocked and asked why when I had been there every step of the way so far and she'd made no attempt to contact me. She mumbled a bit and said she'd tried, but I knew she hadn't. Anyway, she said they'd all gone out and tried bridesmaid dresses. If I went to get a fitting by Friday, impossible, I was away, I could still get mine. I asked for a photo of the dress. It was awful, like a washed-out pink nightie. We'd all said we'd like a dress we could wear, Brian. This one we couldn't, at all. And I'm the last person you'd see in pink. So much for being able to wear it again. But I sucked it up and asked how much. 350 pounds. Insane. I was furious. She'd basically cut me out of the wedding and then expected me to pay for such an ugly dress I couldn't even afford. Needless to say, I wasn't a bridesmaid and didn't go to the wedding. Story 10. The short story is that she lied. She lied to the venue about the number of guests that were attending, effectively packing us like sardines. She lied about having a day of staff. That meant that all the bridesmaids spent the day hanging flowers, running to get kegs and water, pouring champagne for guests, and setting up the entire venue the day before. She lied to the hair and makeup personnel about the number of people who were obtaining services in order to get them to come to the site. This forced guests to get hair and makeup done in order for the bride not to have to be charged extra. She lied to the caterer about the number of guests. This caused them to run out of food and alcohol. All in all, I think her lies saved her $1,500, but cost her close friendships as her attitude toward the whole situation was indignation instead of being apologetic. Good thing that's the short story. I think anything longer than that would be her nose. Story 11. She asked 16 girls to be bridesmaids. In the year and a half between the engagement and wedding, all but 6 dropped out. 3 were her sisters. She wanted 16 separate shades of blue and 16 different styles of dresses for each bridesmaid, then threw a fit when the store didn't have that many options. She demanded everyone pay for a week-long bachelorette party in Vegas, including her share, and then got mad when some people opted out. I was a single mom and college student at the time. Her parents gave her a $20,000 budget and she ended up spending $100,000 demanding they pay for it. They took out a loan they're still paying off. She wanted everyone to have the same shade of hair, so she asked the 2 blonde bridesmaids to dye their hair. They declined. She paid for nothing for the bridesmaids. Traditionally, the brides pay for something, the hair or makeup or dress, but demanded we purchase specific shoes, jewelry, dresses, plus hair and makeup and stay the entire weekend at the hotel she was getting married at. All told, costs for the wedding, not including a gift, were well over $2,000 per bridesmaid. This was mostly amongst college-age women in a poor and middle-class area. She also had 3 separate engagement parties and bridal showers. The final straw for me was when she demanded to see my toast a month prior so she could edit it. She ended up rewriting it totally. I skipped the wedding totally and ended our friendship. They did end up getting married, and 6 years later, he seems absolutely miserable. Man, that's horrible. But on to the more confusing part, who needs 16 bridesmaids? Story 12. My wife got roped into doing the photos for her stepsister's wedding. Normally, my wife would charge between $4,000 and $6,000 for this, and we were flying across the country to attend this wedding mostly out of family obligation, so the bride was getting an amazing deal. Over the course of 6 months, the bride became incredibly hateful on social media, constantly started drama, gave an attitude about her save the dates, and changed venues and locations several times. We knew it was going to be a mess, but we'd committed, so we bought our plane tickets and planned to come. The week before the wedding, the bride went totally psycho and posted nasty, awful things about half of her wedding party, including my wife. So we decided to cancel the photography and not attend the wedding. It wasn't worth it anymore. The bride's own mother was so ashamed of her behavior that she didn't attend either. In total, they had 8 people at their wedding and only got cell phone pictures. We had a nice little vacation and visited a lot of friends in the area. If you're wondering what happened to these bridezillas, then go watch how their marriage ended in Divorce Lawyers. What's the most demented way you've seen someone screw over their spouse? Just kidding, they're completely different people. But story 3 is insane. See you there.